today for Language Arts, it is October 6, 2020, and we are talking about Henry and Mudge. So our lesson essential question for the next 2 weeks that goes with this story is, what is a perfect pet like? Now, we're not going to answer that question right now. We'll think about that question as we read through the story, and we'll talk about that question towards the end of the 2 weeks, because we're actually doing our stories for 2 weeks here in second grade instead of just 1 week or just 5 days or 6 days, okay? We like to take a little bit longer so that we get really strong in those grammar skills especially, because grammar skills are kind of tough, and so that we can work on our comprehension, our understanding what the story says. So today for Language Arts, we are going to need both our hard reading book, we don't need to get it out right now, and our soft reading book, we don't need to get it out right now. We'll need both of those things. And when we're done, we're going to be working on some reading aids. Hopefully we have some time for reading aids and maybe even some fast phonics. Okay. Yeah. So I'm going to close that out for today. Let me make this one go away, and let me bring up our screen. And we are going to be practicing our vocabulary. So let me see if I can make this a little bit better for the people at home. Oh, it won't let me adjust it now that it's already recording. That could be a problem. Oh, well. Okay, so I'd like you right now to get out your hard reading book, the one with the boy on the front. Okay, you should have it in your desk. The one with the boy on the front. And open up to pages 10 and 11. The hard reading book, the one with the boy on the swing on the front. The hard reading book. I see Jose has his out, Brent has hers out, Derek has his out, Jake has his out, Kate has his out. The hard reading book, open to pages 10 and 11. So that you can see the front of the vocabulary cards, just in case you can't see them in front of me. Because I know I have to stand all the way up here and you're all the way back there. Fantastic. Go ahead and open up to pages 10 and 11. Now, I always like to start our stories by going over the vocabulary first, because, pages 10 and 11 there, Jamie, because we are going to hear a lot of these vocabulary words as we read through the story, and that way, as we're reading through the story and we hear these words, we kind of already have an idea of what they mean. Because by understanding the words, then we know what the meaning of the story is a lot better, okay? So, I'll hold this up for friends at home. You can see it right there. That's our first vocabulary word. You can also see it on page 10 in your book. Our first vocabulary word is the word curly. And you can look at the picture in your book. I know it's hard for you to see it all the way up here. That's why I want you looking at them in your book too. If you look at the picture of the dog on the front of the card, it's a poodle, by the way. A poodle has curly fur. Something that's curly is something that's curvy or bendy or twisty. It's not straight, okay? So curvy is actually the opposite of straight. It's curly, bendy, curly is curvy, bendy, twisty, but not straight. So curly is the opposite of straight. Our next vocabulary word, I'll show you friends at home, there you go, is the word straight. So it's awesome that they showed us the opposite of curly right away. And if you look at the picture on the card, you can also look at it in your book. That dog has very straight fur. It says hair, but I don't like to say hair because dogs don't have hair, they have fur. So it says hair, but I like to use the word fur. So you can look, that dog has very straight fur. Straight means it's not curvy, not bendy, not twisty, okay? Curly is curvy, bendy, twisty. Straight is not curvy, not bendy, not twisty. Real easy to remember those two. Then we have the picture of the floppy-eared puppy. He's got very floppy ears. You can find him on page 11 in your book, right at the very top. Look at those puppy's ears. They are definitely flopping around. If they're floppy, it means they're just kind of hanging loosely. Okay? Just kind of hanging down. Maybe your sleeves sometimes are too long in your coat and they flop around. Or maybe sometimes you have pants that are too long or socks that are too big and they kind of flop around. Just means it's hanging loosely. Yes, Gwen?
Then I like that dog because I
He's got very floppy ears. He will grow into them eventually, but they will still always stay floppy. They'll just kind of flop around and hang around his face. Okay? Then we have the word drooled. Nice up-close picture of the St. Bernard for you friends. Drooled is one of my favorite words.
Why?
Because it's really gross.
Ew.
If you look real close at the bottom of that St. Bernard's mouth, I'm pointing to it right here, friends. If you look real close, you can actually see some drool on his face.
I see. Ew.
When an animal drools, or sometimes people drool, when that happens, basically, spit drips out of the mouth.
Ew.
It happens. Animals can do it. People can do it. Levi, you should be sitting facing this direction, buddy. And your arms need to be through your sleeves. Let's go. So when drool happens, spit comes out of the mouth, or saliva. The fancy word is saliva.
Ew.
That's just a fancy word for spit. So when an animal drools, spit comes out. Saliva comes out. Wade is our next vocabulary word. And you can see on the card, the picture on the card, the picture in your book on page 11. The dog is getting weighed. No. The dog is getting weighed. And you've probably been weighed before. Here in the nurse's office, we get weighed once a year. Maybe you go to a doctor's office and you get weighed. When you get weighed, it means that you go onto a scale to find out how heavy or light you are. So, when something is weighed, it is placed on a scale to find out how heavy or light it is. I like to say how light it is, not how heavy it is. Stood is our next vocabulary word. You can also find this on page 11 in your book. The word stood, in this case, does not mean the dog standing on its feet. The sentence says the children measured the dog, he stood 1 foot tall. It doesn't mean he's standing on his legs. In this case, the word stood means how tall he was from the bottom of his feet to the top of his head. So this dog was 1 foot tall from the bottom of his feet to the top of his head. Stood means being a certain height, or how tall you are from the bottom of your feet to the top of your head, or the top of your head to the bottom of your feet. Collars is our next vocabulary word. Up close, here we go, so you can see, friends. You can find it on page 11 in your book also. Collars come in different styles. Goes around a dog's neck, goes around a cat's neck. Sometimes people wear collars. They're like necklaces.
They're like donuts.
Collars are leather or metal or plastic bands, sometimes cloth also, that we put around necks of animals. Or sometimes metal ones, people wear them as decoration for themselves, like jewelry, okay? So collars are leather, metal, plastic, cloth bands that go around the neck. And then last but not least, we have the word row. You can also find row on page 11 in your book. You need to take your hood off. Enough. The word row, if you look at this picture, we've got all kinds of dog treats in a row. Sometimes we stand up in a row. Or sometimes if you go to a store, things are on the shelves in rows. A row is a number of people or things that are arranged in a line. So when we line up to go somewhere, we line up in a row. We get in a certain order in a line, okay? Now, we will go over the vocabulary almost every day because you will need to know it for the test. We do take the weekly tests in here, and you need to be able to tell what those words mean. So hopefully you're paying attention as we're going through this vocabulary so you're familiar with it. Okay, now I would like you to turn to pages, what is it in your book? 13 and 14, I believe? For our, or 14 and 15, pages 14 and 15 in your book for our Henry and Mudge story.
How's all this book? This is